There is a moment before every great act, a moment where you stand completely still, not because you don't want to move, not because you don't know where to go, but because your own mind has locked you in place. You've felt it. That business you've been thinking about for 2 years, that career you said you'd pursue after finishing just one more course, that project you sketched out in a notebook you haven't opened since March. You know exactly what you want to do, and yet you don't do it. Why? Because you are waiting, waiting until you know more, until the timing is right, until you're ready. And here is the brutal, uncomfortable truth that nobody tells you plainly enough: you will never be ready. You will never have enough information. And the waiting itself is the thing slowly robbing you of the life you actually want. There is an ancient Japanese concept that samurai understood in their bones, a state of mind they trained themselves to enter before every duel, every battle, every moment where hesitation meant death. It's called Kunoskai, loosely translated as the world of emptiness, and it has nothing to do with mysticism, nothing to do with clearing your mind in some abstract spiritual sense. It is about something far more practical and far more powerful. It's about acting without the interference of excessive thought, and understanding it might be the most important shift you make this year. Let's talk about what's actually happening in your brain when you can't pull the trigger on something. You have access to more information today than any human being in history has ever had. Courses, case studies, mentorships, frameworks, strategies, all of it available in seconds. And yet, despite that abundance, most people are more stuck than ever, more paralyzed, more lost. That's not a coincidence. The problem is not that you lack information. The problem is that you have too much of it, and your brain is trying to process every variable before allowing you to act. Studies on decision-making suggest the average person makes somewhere between 400 and 1,000 conscious decisions every single day. Every one of those decisions costs mental energy. Now layer on top of that your fears: will I fail? Will I be judged? Will I lose what I have? And your expectations: should it be perfect? Should I be certain? Should I wait until I'm confident? The math doesn't work. The system collapses. And what you're left with is the one thing every overthinking person knows by name, even if they've never named it out loud: paralysis by analysis. You get so busy thinking about how to do it that you never actually do it. The plan becomes the substitute for the action. The research becomes the replacement for the risk. And the years pass. If this is landing for you, stick with me, because this gets better. Hit subscribe and let's keep building together. Miyamoto Musashi, the greatest swordsman Japan ever produced, a man who fought over 60 duels and survived every single one, wrote in his final work, The Book of Five Rings, something that sounds almost paradoxical. He described the highest state of combat not as a state of intense focus, but as a state of emptiness, a state where thought itself stepped aside and the body simply moved. He wasn't being poetic. In a sword duel, you do not have time to think. Your opponent is not going to pause while you calculate the optimal angle of your blade. There is no reviewing the data on his fighting style and formulating a response strategy. There is only movement and counter-movement at a speed that conscious thought cannot keep up with. If you try to think your way through a sword duel, you die. The samurai who lived were not the ones who analyzed the most. They were the ones who had trained so deeply that their body knew what to do, and their mind had learned to get out of the way. This is Kunoskai. Now think about your own life, not in terms of swords, but in terms of moments. Every opportunity that arrives in your life comes with a window. Act in that window and the door opens. Hesitate too long and the window closes. The opportunity shifts, the market moves, the moment passes. You don't die from hesitation, not physically, but something in you does. The version of you who could have built that business, launched that idea, taken that leap, that version quietly fades. And what you're left with is the heaviest sentence a person can carry. What if I had tried? I want to tell you about a woman, let's call her Mara. Everyone who worked with Mara knew she was different. When a project stalled, Mara unblocked it. When a client was frustrated, Mara turned the situation around. When no one else could see a solution, Mara saw three. She had what business schools try to manufacture and rarely succeed: genuine strategic vision. And everyone around her could see it, except Mara. Because Mara had learned to trust analysis over instinct. She had been trained by school, by the corporate world, by years of watching others fail, to believe that preparation was safety, that thinking harder would eliminate risk. So every time an opportunity knocked, Mara didn't open the door. She started researching the door. Business model, profit margins, competitive landscape, tax implications, timing, risk vectors. She mapped everything. And by the time she finished mapping, the opportunity had moved on without her. A colleague invited her to co-found a consultancy. She spent months analyzing it, too long. The colleague found someone else. The company launched. Mara watched from the sidelines. She wasn't indecisive. She was terrified, but not terrified of failing, terrified of acting without certainty. And here is the thing about certainty. It is a ghost. It doesn't exist. You can chase it for a lifetime and never catch it because certainty requires knowing the future, and the future doesn't exist yet. Eventually, Mara met a mentor, older Japanese, a self-made business owner who had built something real from nothing. And this woman said something simple that changed everything for Mara. She said, "You are not waiting to be ready. You are waiting to be sure, and sure is not a place you will ever arrive. The path is made by walking, not by planning to walk." Here is where it gets interesting. Because what the samurai understood instinctively about the human mind, modern neuroscience is now confirming in the lab. When researchers studied the brains of people during peak performance moments, elite athletes, surgeons in flow, artists in the zone, they found something unexpected. The prefrontal cortex, the region of the brain responsible for conscious planning and analysis, was less active during peak performance. Not more, less. The people performing at their highest level were thinking less, not more. Further studies on reaction time found that when athletes consciously tried to control their movements, tried to think through what they were doing, their performance dropped, because the brain's automatic systems are incomparably faster than conscious thought. Your brain processes approximately 11 million bits of information every second. Only around 40 of those bits ever reach your conscious awareness. The rest is processed automatically, below the surface, faster than you can follow. When you try to bring everything up to the conscious level, when you try to think your way through every variable before acting, you're overloading a system that was never designed to work that way. It's like trying to drive by consciously commanding every muscle movement. You'd crash the car. This is what the flow state actually is, stripped of all the motivational poster language. It's the state where conscious interference drops and your trained, experienced, capable self takes over. The samurai called it Kunoskai. Psychologists call it flow. It's the same truth in different languages. Your body and your accumulated experience already know more than your conscious mind can calculate. And when you stop interfering, you perform at levels you cannot access through analysis. The question is not how to think better. The question is how to think less. So what does this actually look like in practice? First, stop chasing certainty. Start chasing clarity. These are completely different things. Certainty is about the future. You will never have it. Clarity is about the present. It's about knowing why you want something, what the next step looks like, and whether you are willing to move. Clarity you can have right now. Clarity is enough. Second, train until you don't have to decide anymore. If there's a skill you need, practice it until the execution stops requiring thought. You don't want to be thinking about technique in the middle of performance. You want technique embedded in muscle memory, in reflex, in automatic response. Emily didn't become a sharper business thinker by reading about business for longer. She became sharper by doing business, repeatedly, imperfectly, in motion. Third, take small steps, but take them immediately. The problem is never the leap, it's the standing still. You don't need the full plan. You need the next step, and you need to take it today. Not when it's ready. not when the timing improves. Today, even a small, imperfect step in motion generates data, momentum, and proof that you can move. Fourth, reframe failure as feedback. Water doesn't stop when it hits a rock. It flows around it. Every mistake you make contains information that analysis could never give you, because that information only exists in the doing. A mistake is not evidence that you shouldn't have started. It's a signal about how to continue. And fifth, trust the process over the result. You do not control whether something succeeds. You control whether you show up and try. When you are fully in the process, present, moving, learning, the result is not a goal you are chasing. It becomes a natural consequence of being in motion. If what you're hearing is clicking for you right now, if you feel that something is shifting, tap like. It helps this reach the person who needs it today. Here is the deepest part of all of this, and you may need a moment to sit with it. You don't need to learn Kunoskai. You already know it. You have always known it. When you were a child, you didn't research how to play before playing. You just played. When you were completely absorbed in something you loved, a project, a conversation, a creative act, you didn't think your way into that state. You just existed in it. Your best moments, your peak experiences, your most alive memories, none of them happened while you were analyzing. They happened when you were fully present and the thinking stepped aside. Kunoskai is not a technique to acquire. It's a state to return to. What you are undoing is not ignorance. It's the layers of fear and expectation and conditioning that were stacked on top of your natural way of being. School taught you to second guess. The world taught you that mistakes are shameful. Society taught you that certainty is responsible and action without it is reckless. And now you have to unlearn all of that. You are not broken. You are not lazy. You are not lacking in ambition or talent or drive. You are overtrained in caution and undertrained in motion. And that can change. It has to change. Because the version of your life that is waiting for you on the other side of your overthinking, that version deserves to exist. The potter doesn't plan each curve before touching the clay. The chef doesn't calculate each flavor before tasting. The practitioner doesn't calculate the countermove before the attack arrives. They flow. They act. They trust what they've built. And the work that comes out of that state is alive in a way that no amount of planning could produce. You know what you want to do. You've known for a while. You don't need more information. You don't need a better plan. You need to begin. Not tomorrow, not when it's ready, not when you feel certain, now. Stop thinking about the life you want to build and start building it, one imperfect, present, courageous step at a time. The path will appear beneath your feet as you walk it. It always does. That is Kunoskai. That is the samurai's secret, and it has been yours all along. Subscribe to this channel. We're not here for comfort. We're here for the kind of clarity that actually changes how you live. There's more coming, and you're going to want to be here for it.